How's it going, guys? We are live tonight to talk some CSGO. We got a lot of slates tomorrow. We have one slate that we did not cover so far yet in the video content. If you have not gotten a chance to check out the video content that we've already been posted, you can find it right at our channel. I had a breakdown with Sean Mitchell from Fantasy Alarm. Also had my own small breakdown on DreamHack. So I think I'm going to talk here about Blast early, and then let people come in with some questions. We can talk some strategy, talk about the best of ones. That's been a lot different than what we normally have seen, just in terms of how people build and maybe some strategy. Just trying to get out on Twitter here quick to see if we can get a couple more people on and chat about CSGO. One second here, then we'll get started. Give another 30 seconds here, and then we'll get started. We'll start with the odds from the Blast early slate. So we're about a minute before we're supposed to start. So all right, we are at 9:30. Let's start talking this slate over. I think just as an edge, I think these earlier slate locks, I think typically have less of the public playing, which for me I really like, because I think that there's less content, less people playing. I think that creates more of an edge for the people that are willing to take a dive into some of these smaller slates that I don't know. I think they provide a nice edge. So let's go over the odds first, and they actually have changed since I looked earlier. We have two games on the Blast early slate. NIP comes in as the biggest favorite at -425 against Saw. Now, what is incredibly amazing about the pricing and the algorithm that DraftKings uses for CSGO pricing is on a slate like this, they did not look at the odds at all, obviously. They looked at recent performance for a team like Saw against lower level teams. So if you pull up your own pricing, you're going to notice that for the Saw NIP game, the NIP players are priced lower than the Saw players. Murtius, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it correctly, is the most expensive player in this game, and he's 8,400. He has been Saw's best player, but they just got destroyed by Astralis this afternoon. After Astralis themselves did not look very good earlier today in their first match. Their first match was snappy. But if I look at, I think the score, I'm checking it right now. I'm pretty sure, yeah, it was 16-4. So Astralis won 16-4 today against Saw. And let's just see. Mutrius was 9-18. He was the worst on Saw today in that matchup. Just was the best player with a 14-5, and all the rest of the players were 11-17, 10-17, 12-17. I mean, going up against Astralis is never easy anyway. But remember, NIP handled Astralis really well today. The Astralis team is not the same Astralis team that we saw, dominate at Road to Rio. So I think that just it's pretty clear that Saw is not somebody that you really want to be targeting, especially in cash games tomorrow. If you want to consider Saw as a GPP, sure, go ahead. It's just not where I'm going to start or finish. So again, for those of you just hopping on, I'm just talking about the NIP Saw game. Really focus your ownership and your build on NIP. And on NIP, it's pretty easy to get after Knock at 7,600 and Plopsky at 7,200. I think Plopsky is an excellent captain candidate tomorrow for that Blast early slate. You can even punt all the way down to Hampus at 5,000. I don't think it's really viable. I don't think it's really needed. Remember, this is a best of one. So the best of ones, and you'll notice in the lineup builds today that you didn't, besides Masuda, who just went off for Vitality, you're not really looking to target players to just get the 2-0 sweep because there's no sweep here. It's just a best of one. So you really need that really good performance in that one game. So I think that that's really important when you're building for these best of ones. Let's jump over to the other game here quick, Fnatic and Virtus Pro, which I think will be a much closer game, and the odds obviously suggest that as well. Fnatic is coming in as a -175 favorite right now. I don't really know that the odds have taken into consideration that Virtus Pro did add Yekindar to their roster, and he will easily become the second best player on the team behind James. Yekindar has a 0.74 kill per round. He was the best player for who am I thinking? Pro 100? Yeah, I think that's who he played for. No, Espada. Espada is where he played before. Yeah, teams. I gotta look. I just know he moved. Pro 100, I think, is who he was with. So, yeah, I think that game is a game you could probably go 2-1 on players. When you have these best of ones, I think that you have to consider maybe a one-off here with VP like James. I think it's criminally underpriced just based on his talent level at 7,400. I think he should be the most expensive VP player. But again, DK is going off of the fantasy points per game, where Yekindar had an 87-point game there at the end of Road to Rio. He had some big games at Road to Rio, but it's not something that don't let those game logs fool you. So the early slate here, for those of you that are just joining, I really appreciate the support. NIP and Saw, just completely X out Saw in any of your cash lineups. Plug in Plopsky, plug in Knock. And then when we get to, and then I think you can definitely consider Rez as a third NIP. But then if you go over to the VP and FNC, the Fnatic game, Brawlin and Crims were pretty disappointing today in their performances, as was Flusha, actually all three of them. JW and Golden actually played better than them. Golden had an ace, which is really uncharacteristic. So don't be afraid tomorrow to go back to the Fnatic top fraggers like Brawlin and Crims. Flush is viable too. But I do think that this is a game that you would only take 2 Fnatic players and then probably one off with James from VP or Yekindar if you have the salary. Quickert was like kind of that third option for VP. It was kind of James, Buster, Quickert, but I'm not really going there unless I feel like I need to with value. But again, NIP is so cheap that I think that it's going to be really easy to build on this slate. So I think I see we had a question in here. Oren, cash 3-man NIP and 3-man Fnatic or 2-man Fnatic with James. I think I do like the two-man Fnatic with Jame a little bit better, unless you have a strong feel that Fnatic just runs them over. But as we've seen with Fnatic, who just got destroyed by Mad Lions today, I don't think that is a mutual feeling with anybody right now, that Fnatic is just going to walk all over somebody. I think that with an upgraded roster for VP, I think somebody like Jame or Yekindar definitely makes sense as a value play. And similar to what Sean and I talked about earlier today on our other Blast stream, is that when you take three guys from a team in a best of one series, it's really hard for, like, say, all three of them to have 20 kills, unless it goes, the distance to 30 rounds. And even at that, you can't get overtime in these best of ones. So you saw the Vitality game just end in a tie. So you do want maybe the closer matchups just to get the most rounds out of the players. You're still going to get the rounds not played. But when you have somebody like Jame, you would rather see rounds played rather than rounds not played, because you would expect him to average over a half a point per round. So I think that's probably where you should start: three-man NIP, and then maybe go a two-man Fnatic with Jame, or some other one-off. You could go with Yekindar. I'm not really excited to one-off with anybody from SAW. So I think with only having two games available, I think going three NIP is definitely viable. And the three are obviously pretty easy to plug in and play. Patrick, thanks for coming on, man. I am going to cover, we just finished talking because I knew that would go pretty quick. I am going to touch back to the DreamHack slate and the other Blast slate if anybody has any questions. I'm going to kind of update odds from when we talked earlier. If you got a chance to check out the earlier content, and if you haven't, go check it out. Give it a like, subscribe. That helps us a ton. Share out this feed. The more people that we can get to play CSGO, the bigger the contest we're going to get from DraftKings and FanDuel. So I think it's a collective effort to continue to push esports content in general. So I'm going to go and just update look at some odds here. If you are going to play that 5 a.m. slate, I would probably suggest just hopping on, waking up maybe a half hour before, set your alarm. Maybe if you're already playing KBO, to just flip it on, just to make sure that you aren't completely missing some player that sits out, because that can be the end to your lineup, or be a huge advantage for people that just set their lineups and did not wake up. So I would definitely do that. Let me see here. I'm bringing up our slate for tomorrow. So Tyloo now is actually a minus 575 favorite. So they've actually gained even more traction from the public. And they are trending to even be an even bigger favorite than they were earlier today. And then we also have our, let's see, they have taken down the VC Gaming odds on Bovada. So let's just take a peek somewhere else before we get on. Yeah, that's way too G-Gen. Yeah, night guys. Thanks, dude, for the good work. Awesome. Appreciate it, Patrick. There's never anything that's too D-Gen. I mean, actually, I think these showdown slates in the one game are pretty D-Gen, just because the range of outcomes are pretty wide in a one map sample size. I always like to have the best of three. That just gives the better players more of an opportunity to perform, So I'm going to go here. I have not seen updated odds for them. Oceania, no. I want the Asia slate. Okay, here we go. Well, according to GG.bet, VC is actually up to a minus 900 favorite now. So, which, again, I think they are the clear team you are stacking tomorrow. Now, if you watched my earlier video, I talked about the 3-3 stack, and I did really point out my 6 favorite players for both of those teams. Unfortunately, if you try to use only those 6 players, you will not successfully build a lineup that does not go over the salary cap. So that's kind of one reason I wanted to touch back on this slate, just to kind of reevaluate a little bit. I still think that, someone like Alman is really hard to pass up at 7K. He's too cheap. Jam Young at 10.2. As we know with a lot of players that get to that 10K price range, there's always a reason to pivot if you don't think that they might get there. We've seen this with the Simples, the Zywus, the Nikos. I don't think that you just treat this one different because it's in a different league or a different setting. So if you're really struggling to find a way to get top three VC in there, you maybe would consider dropping down from VC and looking at somebody like Jacquin. I don't want Advent, as I said before. He has less than a half a kill per round. If you want to maybe look at the other side, so if you're looking at Tai Lu, my favorite three players from Tai Lu were Danking, Slowly, and Attacker. If you maybe wanted to get away from somebody like Slowly, then you could possibly go down to maybe Summer or somebody as a pivot to gain some salary. Again, when you're probably making that pivot, you're really depending on a 2-0 sweep because if you don't get that 2-0 sweep for a couple of those guys, that would be pretty tough to swallow, passing up one of those top guys. I just think either way you slice it, you probably in cash games want to get a 3-3. There's not really like a really good value for, QQ God is Beyond's best player and along with Olivia. So I don't know if you wanted to get contrarian and go down from Danking and play one of them, that would free up a couple thousand in salary. But again, I don't really, like that strategy all that well. Just to give you a kind of a perspective, the last time Beyond played VC, they're not playing today. Olivia scored 22 points in 2 maps when they got swept. He had 23 kills and 38 deaths. And then QQ God put up a whopping 29 points. So Beyond has not been all that great in Roto Rio. So I don't think that I just don't think you get away from the 3-3 tomorrow. So stick to your guns on that and make sure that that's something that you build in your cash lineups at least. So let's go to our blast slate. I am just going to touch on maybe some updated odds here. And also when you're looking at odds, I think obviously it's definitely good to track odds and see how they move and change, but also try to get to different sources. Because if you're always just looking at the same book, that might give you a skewed view of what is really happening in the public. So I think it's good to check other places and see what other books have to offer, because maybe there's a big discrepancy in the value. So I'm still seeing that right now. C9 is going to be our biggest favorite on the late slate. C9 is coming in at a whopping, let's see. And C9 is not priced appropriately. They are still at a 335 favorite against Triumph. I think Floppy is one of the best plays on the slate, along with OC, and they're super reasonable. Mad Lions are minus 195 favorite. They've dropped just 5 points since they've dropped just, against Dignitas. Then we have Furia, still minus 150 favorite against Gen G, who got beat, I think, today by MIBR. And MIBR has dropped a little bit to minus 260 against Chaos. And if you just want kind of a recap of what those results were today for those teams, we did get Evil Geniuses. They are not on tomorrow's slate, but they did beat Thieves 16-12. Gen G took care of Chaos pretty easily, 16-8. MIBR beat Furia 16-13. And I kind of foreshadowed a little bit of Furia kind of not dominating MIBR. MIBR, when they played them in that first match, they were rusty. They brought in TRK. They got demolished by Furia, and now they've had time to gel. They have 3 players that are immensely talented that they shouldn't just all of a sudden continue to get beat up by teams that are not really that much better than them long term. I mean, Furia is a better team, but I don't think it's something that they should just dominate them. So again, for the late slate or for the main slate, I guess I should say, uh, Sean and I touched on some of the price points that we really liked. Floppy, OC, Bubsky is going to be popular, especially after his performance today. I really like Acor as another value play with the AWP. He looked phenomenal today against Fnatic, and I don't really see that trend going away. He's just a super smart player. Uh, and then, like I said, Furia minus 150. They are underpriced per usual. We have Quesarado at 7,600. Henny at 7,400. He's the one that played the best today out of the group. And Yuri at 7,400. All three are very much in play against Gen G. And then MIBR, Fallen at 8,600. Fur at 7,600. And KNG at 7,200 are also part of my player pool tomorrow that I am figuring in for cash. And again, if you're thinking about strategy, I would definitely consider tomorrow probably going, 2-2-2, or you could do a 3-2-1. But I think that in cash games, don't try to get too crazy. I think you would really focus your ownership on C9 and MIBR, and then potentially one or two of the Mad Lion players. So if you guys have any other questions, shoot them in the chat. I'll hang out here for another couple minutes, and then I will sign out. You can hit me up on Twitter. Like I said, hit that like, subscribe. We always appreciate it. And we want to continue to get things like this out to the rest of you. I think on this slate, and not even just basing it off of the odds, but Gen G is going to definitely be more competitive against Furia. So I think you can look at that two ways. That it potentially would go like today. It went longer. It went Furia lost 16-13. So they might keep it a little bit closer, but Yuri and Quesarado didn't play very well, even though that it went close to the end. Henny was the only one. I do prefer MIBR and Cash to go two from them. And if you can't get to Fallen, I think Fur and KNG are very much viable. Fallen, I think, has the most upside usually. Fur had some amazing games lately, but I think Fallen with the AWP is pretty amazing. So I think if you can get to him at 8,600, I think that's certainly a play. Fallen really should be priced at like mid-9 on a slate like this where they're the biggest favorite. And we also should see someone like Floppy be high 8s, low 9. No problem, Oren. Hey, anybody else jumping on here, reach out, shout out, throw me a question. If you want me to go back over a slate that we already talked about, you can certainly do that. I might actually hop over to Twitter live too, just to see if we can continue to talk some CSGO tonight. All right, guys, thanks again. I'm going to sign off here. Feel free to reach out if you got any questions.